Next, let's check in with Mary Alice Parks. She is in Manchester, New Hampshire, ABC News Deputy Political Director. Good morning, Mary Alice Parks.
Hi, good morning.
What is Senator Flake doing up in New Hampshire?
Well, a lot of people here assume that it meant he was flirting with a run for president. I mean, that's why a lot of people come to New Hampshire, especially a senator all the way from Arizona. He spoke to a crowd last night that included Republicans, independents, and Democrats who said they were listening in part because they're so interested in the role he's been playing in all of these Supreme Court nomination proceedings, but also because they're wondering if the reason he came up here was because he's considering running for president.
It's really interesting because he's sort of persona non grata in the Republican Party, or at least in portions of the room he isn't very well liked.
Right. There are people that say he might be a man without a party at all. He says he is a tried and true Republican. He's been a conservative and a Republican his whole life. He started his speech, though, talking about how he thinks the Republican Party has lost its way. Where is the party of Ronald Reagan was the beginning of his speech. And he talked about moments over his career where he did what he thought was the right thing. Things like standing up next to his Arizona colleague, Gabby Giffords, during the State of the Union to help her stand when she was recovering from a gunshot wound. And the response he got from members of the Republican Party because it looked as if he was standing up with Democrats. He basically blasted his party for losing sight of humanity and especially imagining or losing the ability to imagine that someone on the other side of the aisle is still a human to be valued with ideas that could be valued.
You know, it really is interesting who, if anyone from the party, is going to take on President Trump in the primaries, right? Last time it was 17 people. If it's one or two, you have to wonder if people would leave President Trump for one or two others, but right, to split the vote with the 17 others. But if there was one opposition, that could be an interesting fight for President Trump.
It really could, and I would be surprised if we didn't see at least one or two others really debate it and maybe throw their hat in the ring in the end. There's a lot of talk about whether someone like Jeff Flake could run as an independent. I asked him about that. He said that that's a really hard road, and again, he sees himself as a Republican, and he wants to basically get the Republican Party back on track, he says. But it will be very interesting to see who primaries President Trump, if anyone does, and which of these Republicans maybe instead leave the party altogether and run as independent.
Did he say anything about the Kavanaugh controversy last night?
Yeah, sure. He was asked about it a lot. He said that he thinks his decision to basically force the Senate to press pause and demand that FBI investigation, he said it was definitely the right thing to do. You know, someone asked him if he was thinking about the late Senator John McCain, his Arizona colleague, in that moment. And he said without hesitation, yes, that he wouldn't want to assume that he knew exactly what John McCain would do, but that he did know his former colleague, always cared about process and order and keeping institutions like the court and the Senate as furthest from partisan politics as possible. And I thought that was a pretty touching moment.
Mary Alice Parks, ABC News Deputy Political Director in Manchester. Mary Alice, thanks for checking in. Have a good day.
Thanks.